Hello everybody and welcome to a train simulator video. Today we shall be driving the class 313 EMU from Stratford to Richmond. So the first thing we need to do is we need to turn off the pause menu, and we're going to open the doors by pressing T. The next thing we need to do is we need to turn on the headlights by pressing H, turn on the marker lights by pressing M, and turn off the front tail lights by pressing K. The next thing we need to do is we need to turn off the driver reminder appliance by pressing Y. Now we need to turn on the AWS by holding down F and pressing S, and then acknowledging the AWS by pressing Q. And the final thing we need to do is we need to change the destination display so that it displays Richmond. And we can also turn on the destination light just to make the destination blind a bit more readable from the outside. And our train is ready for departure. On the North London line, the class 313 is operated with a guard, so the doors will be closed automatically. And when it's time to depart, we need to reply to the guard by pressing the C button. So I'm just going to turn off the HUD as well, just really because I know the North London line fairly well, so I'm going to try and drive as much as possible without it in this video. And our first station stop is Hackney Wick. So I'll just wait for the doors to close now. Just open up the window so we can hear the external sounds. So departing Stratford, the starting speed limit is 15 miles an hour. Just going to cut the power to the train now and just let it roll. And our next speed increase is up to 20 miles an hour, and we'll be able to accelerate up to that once we just come up to this large overbridge here. Just going to put the train back into shunt to hold the rate of acceleration, so we don't want to be too aggressive. Just going to cut the power to the train again now and let it roll forward. You'll notice that in this scenario that the class 378 EMUs are in 3-car formation, and this is because in the time period that this scenario represents, it represents the transition between the class 313 and the 378. And when the 378s were first delivered to the North London line, they were delivered. They started out in 3-car formation. Of course, nowadays they usually operate in a 5-car formation. So the speed limit is increased to 40 miles an hour, but we won't accelerate up to that until we reach this signal here. Just had warning for a speed reduction down to 25 miles an hour, so I'm going to cut the power to the train now, and I'm going to put it into step 1 of braking, and that should bring us down nicely. And the speed limit is just before the station at Hackney Wick, so I'm just going to release the brakes now and just let the train roll forward. You can just You can just about make out the station as we approach it now. The 20 sign is just before the 25 sign is just before the platform. Just going to put the train into a step 2 brake application. And with this being a 3-car unit, we don't have to go right the way down to the end of the platform. So we can just stop pretty much halfway down the platform. So just opened up the doors now. We're using the Armstrong Powerhouse lighting enhancement back on the route, so it gives a much richer feel to the lighting. Makes the colours look a lot warmer. So departing Hackney Wick, our next station stop is Homerton. Just going to cut the power to the train now. Just going to let it roll forward. Going to apply a bit more power to the train. So we lost a bit of speed going around that tight curve. And the speed limit is now increased to 45 miles an hour. So we'll just wait until we pass this signal here. It's just taking a bit of a while for the train to accelerate. We're just on the approaches to Homerton now, so I'm just going to put the train into step 2 of braking. With the platforms being this short, we want to enter no faster than 25 miles an hour. Just going to put a full service brake application in just to make sure we do stop. And here we are at Homerton. As we leave Homerton, I'm going to put the train into full power. And as we reach 45 miles an hour, I'm just going to cut the power off again. And here we are at Hackney Central. So departing Hackney Central, the next stop will be Dalston Kingsland. We've just got advanced warning that our speed will be dropping, and in this case it's down to 40 miles an hour, so I'm just going to apply step 1 of braking just to bring the train down to 40 miles an hour. I think the speed sign is just before this over ridge. It's just after it. So I'm just going to let the train roll forward. And I'm just going to apply step 2 of braking now as we approach Dalston Kingsland. Just going to put a full service brake application on. And I've just overshot the platform there. So the front doors won't open. But there's no real point in reversing back just for the sake of trying to get all the doors to open. Departing Dalston Kingsland, our next station stop will be Highbury and Islington. Oh no, sorry, next stop is Canonbury. Just cutting power to the train now. Just going to start braking for Canonbury now. Just going to put a step 2 brake application on. And go into full service. Our next station stop will be Highbury in Islington. Highbury in Islington is a transfer point to the East London line, as well as the Victoria line and the Great Northern Suburban branch into Moorgate. It also uses Class 313s. Our next station stop is Caledonian Road in Barnesbury. The speed limit is still 40 miles an hour. Just going to bring a full service brake application on just to bring our speed down. Our next station stop will be at Camden Road. just got a diversion route aspect, so we're just changing tracks ahead of us. And we've just had an advance warning that our speed will be reducing down to 20 miles an hour, and this takes effect just before the station platform, so we've just gone into a step 1 brake application, just easing the train down. Although we just have passed a 40 sign, the 20 sign's not too far down. It's just at the end of this bridge here. It's very, very small. Just before that overhead gantry there. And here we are at Camden Road. Really do like the amount of detail that's gone into the Class 313, especially on the liveries and the passenger interior. And depending on the livery, the seats have a different style maquette. And in this case, the Silverlink 313's retained their British Rail Blue maquette from from when Network South East refreshed the trains back during the 1980s. So departing Camden Road, the speed limit is 20 miles an hour. I'm just going to cut the power to the train. It's going to bring a bit more power on. And this is where the trains diverge off towards the link with the West Coast Main Line. The link is primarily used by freight, but it is also used for empty stock movements to Stratford by London Overground. And the speed limit is now increased to 45 miles an hour, so we'll just accelerate up to that as soon as we just come up to this large building here. Don't want to be overly aggressive because we are soon approaching our next stop, which is at Kentish Town West. In fact, we're just approaching it. I can just see the platforms ahead, so just going to go into a step 2 brake application because the platform is quite short. Just going into full service just to make sure we do stop. Just release the brakes now. Just going to let the train roll forward a bit more. Just going to put it into shunt and cut the power again. And that should be about right. We should have all 3 coaches in. Our next stop after Kentish Town West is Gospel Oak. Just past a warning board for a reduction in our speed to 20 miles an hour. So we've gone into step 2. Just going to bring it down into step 3 just to make sure we do slow down. I'm not quite sure where this 20 speed restriction starts, but I know it's for the tight curves around Gospel Oak Station. So I think it's just after this signal here. You can just about see the platforms at Gospel Oak now. Just going to open the doors now. Now Gospel Oak is an interchange here for the line to Barking, which is still partially unelectrified and as such is run by London Overground Class 172 Turbo Stars, though the line is due to be electrified soon. Something that I would have liked to have seen in the North London line route for Train Simulator, but Dovetail just decided to make it a standard A to B route, so don't think, to be honest, I don't think there was any real excuse not to include the Gospel Oak to Barking line, because they had the London Overground licence. They might as well have bundled in a London Overground Class 172 with the route as well. So, but no doubt they will probably do the Gospel Oak to Barking line as an extension to this route, but probably charge us more for it, like they've done with the Sheerness branch. So the speed limit is still 20 miles an hour. And our next station stop is at Hampstead Heath. Our speed limit is now increased back up to 45 miles an hour, which is the maximum speed limit on the North London line, and it certainly is achievable at certain sections. The maximum speed of the Class 313 is 75 miles an hour. So we're actually climbing uphill here just a fraction, but we are approaching Hampstead Heath now, so just cutting power to the train. We're now entering Hampstead Tunnel, which is the only major tunnel on the North London line today. It was really the only major structure that had to be constructed when the line was built as well. So I'm just letting the train roll through the tunnel, as the next station is just outside the exit to the tunnel. So I'm just going to start slowing down for Finchley Road and Frognall now. Just going to put the train into full service. Just coming in a little bit too fast there, so but we will stop in time. And our next station stop after here is West Hampstead. Just going to cut the powers of the train. The West Hampstead station isn't too far away. In fact, it's just we're just fast approaching it now, so just going to put the train into full service again. Just going to move the train forward a bit more, just to make sure that we do get all the carriages in the platform. And West Hampstead is a major interchange with the Jubilee line, as well as the Thameslink station at West Hampstead. All three stations are located just on the same street, so they are all within reasonable walking distance of each other. Though apparently there are plans to link the three stations together with a new designated walkway. Our next station stop is Brondesbury. Which I believe is just after this signal. Just about make out the platforms. And here we are at Brondesbury. Our next stop is Brondesbury Park. So I believe it's just round the bend. The distances between the stations on the North London line are rather short, which requires an immense amount of concentration, especially when you're driving without the HUD. So I'm just going to put the train into a full service brake application. Just going to roll the train forward a bit more. Stopped a little bit too early there. And the next station stop is Kensal Rise. So we've stopped at all the stations on time, which is good. believe Kensal Rise is just after this signal here, so that's why I've just cut power to the train early. It's on a bit of a blind bend, this one. And you can just about see the station building on top of the overbridge there. Of course, with this lighting level, it's a bit harder to make out where your stations are. Well, the platform lighting does help in making them stand out. So I'll just stop about here. Our next station stop is at Willesden Junction, and I believe soon the speed limit will be dropping down to at least 30 miles an hour, so we'll just have to keep an eye for the signs there. In fact, we've just passed a warning board for 35 miles an hour, so I'm just going to cut the power to the train. Generally, the warning boards, or the Morpeth boards as they're known, are placed about a mile away from the where the actual speed limit takes effect. And I believe there's a further just after Willesden Junction, there's a further drop down to 20 miles an hour just for the tight curves around the station. So we're in the 35 limit now anyway. And the speed limit has just dropped down to 20 miles an hour, so we are speeding a little bit there. Well, I must admit I didn't really see another Morpeth board for that 20. So when we get a speeding notice in the scenario brief, that's what it'll be. So we're just approaching Willesden Junction now anyway. So major transfer point to the Bakerloo line, as well as the London Overground service to Watford Junction, which continues beyond the Bakerloo line terminus at Harrow and Wealdstone towards Watford Junction, which by 2020 will see Metropolitan line trains terminate there, with an extension from Croxley. So departing Willesden Junction, the speed limit is still 20 miles an hour. And our next station stop is Acton Central, where we shall be switching from the overhead 25 kV lines to the 750 volt DC third rail. Just going to drop the speed down, so we are slightly rolling downhill. So I've just had a reminder from the dialog box there. And then once we arrive at Acton Central, we'll open the doors and I will show you the process of switching from the overhead to the third rail. And we're just gaining a bit of speed there, so just apply the brakes once again. Speed does increase somewhere, not too sure where though. May have to bring up the HUD. Just see what's by the signal here. Move the camera up a bit. To bring my HUD on. Oh, the speed limit is now increased to 30 miles an hour, so it's always good to be cautious at some points. I'll just cut the power to the train. I think we are on, still on a bit of a downward gradient, so just take our time. The speed limit is now increased to 35 miles an hour. So we should be able to accelerate up to that now. Power to the train. Just going to apply with the brakes again. Sometimes you don't realise how steep the hill is. Especially when you aren't driving without the HUD. And we're now approaching Acton Central. And the speed limit has now increased back up to 45 miles an hour again. Just passing over Acton Central level crossing. So it's quite a long platform here at Acton Central, so we don't need to go right the way down. Probably just by this brick wall here. So we'll just open the doors. and we will put the train into neutral gear, and we will press the shoe down button, and I think we need to press the set reset button, but our overhead is now dropping. Just see it drop down there now, and we should now have power from the third rail. So might help if we put the train into forward gear. So the speed limit is now 45 miles an hour. On the Moorgate branch, the Class 313s are electrically limited to 30 miles an hour when they are running on third rail. Just going to cut the power to the train now. Our next station stop is at South Acton. And here we are at South Acton station. Just got advanced warning that our speed will be dropping back down again. I believe it's down to 25 miles an hour. And in fact the signal ahead is displaying a single yellow aspect with a diversion indication. We'll just slow down here and stop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the driver reminder appliance when you come to a stop at a station that is displaying a caution, and the starting signal is displaying a cautionary aspect. It is actually compulsory that you set the DRA if you see a cautionary aspect displaying on the station starter. So it's not just used for red signals, but also for the cautionary aspects as well. So our next station stop is Gunnersbury. And the speed limit is now 25 miles an hour. As we diverge at Acton Gatehouse, I think it's Acton Gatehouse Junction. Just passed over Bolo Lane level crossing. And the speed limit has just dropped down to 15 miles an hour as we now join up with with the Richmond branch of the District Line. So the stations on the District Line can accommodate up to a 6-car train. So, but again, we don't need to stop right the way down at the end of the platform. So we've got all the carriages in the platform here. Although you can't really see it in with this lighting, the London Gunnersbury and Kew Gardens have the London Underground red roundels on the station signage, which just makes me want a London Underground route even more for this version of Train Simulator. But I think that licensing is certainly a major obstacle for a London to overcome, for Dovetail to overcome if they want to produce a London Underground route for Train Simulator. So, at the very least, I'd like to see at least one subsurface route and one deep level tube route. So the speed limit has now increased to 45 miles an hour. So we are just speeding a little bit. Of the subsurface lines I would like to see for the underground, I'd probably like to see the District Line in its entirety, because it is, with the S stock replacing all the D stock now, it is the most up-to-date subsurface route. There is the Metropolitan line that could also be done, but we're getting the as I mentioned earlier, the Watford extension will be built by 2020, so might be best to hold off before that extension is built. It might be best to hold off after that extension is built. For the deep level tube route, I'd like to see the Central line again in its entirety. And maybe they could possibly, because it uses the same type of tube stock, they could bundle it with the Waterloo and City line. The only major differences between the two tube lines is that the 1992 stock are driven quite differently. On the Central line, it's automatic. The 1992 stock are automatically driven, and on the Waterloo and City line, the 1992 stock are manually driven. So it'd be nice to see some diversity there. So we're now approaching Kew Gardens Station, home of the famous Royal Botanic Gardens, which is now a World Heritage Site. So you can see the London Underground red roundel there better. And departing Kew Gardens, our next and final stop is at Richmond. Going to cut the power to the train now, As the speed limit will be dropping soon down to 35 miles an hour. So we've just passed the Morpeth board for the 35 miles an hour now, so just going to slow down the train. And I believe that as we enter Richmond, the gradient drops slightly just after we pass under the Mortlake Road, or the A316. And we've just passed another Morpeth board for a further reduction in our speed down to 15 miles an hour. So we're just going to drop the speed down again. In fact, we're just entering the 35 limit now. I believe the 15 limit doesn't start until just before the entrance to the station. At this point, we now join up with the southwest main line from Waterloo, which heads off towards Windsor and Reading. So we've just passed a single yellow with a route indicator into platform 3. Which is normally used by North London Line trains. Platforms 3 and 4 are normally used by North London Line trains, with platforms 5 and 6 being used by the District Line, and platforms 1 and 2 are designated for the South West train services. There is also a physical link here at Richmond with the North London Line, which is mainly used for engineering movements. Don't think there's many empty passenger stop movements that use it. Could also serve as a useful emergency link for North London Line trains to use platforms 1 or 2 if necessary. Of course, District Line trains can't use the link because they're not compatible with the 750 volt third rail. But that said, there are plans in the pipeline to uprate the traction power on the subsurface lines to 750 volts. They currently use 630 volts, but I believe the fourth rail will be retained. But that's the traction voltage. I don't think is going to be upgraded until the signalling is upgraded. But for that, they need all the S-stock in place, and by the 2020s, the subsurface lines on the underground will be automatically driven. Here we are at Richmond, our final destination. So just going to shut the train down now. So I'll put the sun blind down. Just turn off the instrument lighting as well. And it's saying scenario incomplete, so we must have stopped at one of the stations. I think one of the station stops might have been timetabled, so only once. We had improper use of a horn there. We sped 4 times. But I don't know why it's done us for improper horn use there, since we did pass a horn sign. Sorry, whistleboard to be more precise. But other than that, it was a very good scenario. I did enjoy it, and hopefully, all being well, I shall see you soon with another train simulator video. So thank you very much for watching, and take care.